All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Lasting Learning Podcast. This week on the show, got a special treat because I am meeting our guest for the very first time today. I'm meeting him right alongside of you meeting him. But I'm telling you, this is going to be an epic conversation because this is a guy who is seemingly doing all the things for all the right reasons. He's living life down in the Dominican Republic, changing the way business is done, changing the world through environmentalism, sustainability, creating documentaries, growing a business, literally living the dream, but doing it for all the right reasons. I'm hoping that his story is going to inspire you today. I'm hoping he's going to change the way that you interact with the world and the people around you. So sit back and listen to the story of Jake Kheel. Jake, thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
This is going to be a fun conversation for me because as I've been doing a deep dive on all things about you, I mean, your story is just more and more fascinating. Every single thing I find just intrigues me a little bit more. So, can you just tell people, first of all, how did you find your way to Punta Cana? How did you find your way to the Dominican? What is it that you do, and why are we chatting today?
Well, thanks again for having me. And I live in the eastern part of the Dominican Republic, and I've been here for 16 years. And my relationship with the Dominican Republic has been kind of a long romance. I came here in high school on a study abroad program. It was a former Peace Corps volunteer from my high school who had set up an exchange program in the DR, and he was here when it was, post dictatorship. The only U.S. people that are here are kind of CIA agents. It was very shady time to be here, and he fell in love with the island. And so then when I came, I stayed with the same family that he had lived with on my homestay, and just kind of fell in love with the island. I love the music. I love the people. This like real warmth about it, and I just kept coming back. And then as the years went on and I really became clear that, my passion for being outside and being in nature was transforming really in a deep, long-term concern to protect nature, to protect these, amazing ecosystems and places that I like to visit and play in and hike and swim and bike and snorkel and scuba dive in. And then they were deeply, deeply threatened places. And so I got the opportunity to come to Punta Cana and work for a company. This was after I had done a master's at Cornell in environmental management. And yeah, I had this kind of shock moment when I came down here and I started working for a tourism resort, a tourism development company. And I thought, wow, I thought I was going to work for Conservation International or, World Wildlife Fund or one of these big NGOs to protect nature. And here I am working for the enemy, the bad guys. And I figured I would just be here for a year or two just to get a little experience, to be able to say, yeah, I know what's going on in the private sector. So now we can defeat them, when I work for Nature Conservancy or whoever. Uh, and nothing like that happened at all. Basically, I became convinced that companies are this key component to solving many of these environmental challenges. And if we don't have passionate people inside companies trying to change the way they act and perform, then we're never really going to get full traction. It's going to be this kind of stalemate between the two sides. And so that became really my passion, and what's kept me in Punta Cana over the last 16 years is the idea that companies can be these hubs for innovation. They're these amazing places for creativity. And if you can get a few people inside a company on board with this message of sustainability, you can really have this amazing transformative impact. And that's really what my passion has become.
It's pretty cool how you talk about your first time down there was decades ago, and your experience with it was shaped by a man who remembered CIA infiltration in the DR. That's what you kind of described as what you thought your job was going to be. You're going to be this infiltrator into the private sector, just trying to figure out what's happening behind enemy lines. And then you realized, it's kind of paradise both on the beach and inside the air conditioning. There's possibilities here. I think a lot of people, their experience with the DR is that it's a place they go on vacation. It's a place where they go and they soak up and they just try to take as much as they can from the island, from the country, from the people. It's a place that oftentimes it a lot of memories are made, but a lot of memories are made simply through vacation living, vacation life. You get to live there. Is it as glorious and is it the paradise that so many other people simply see on their week 10-day vacations?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have to admit, the thing I love about the DR is where I get to live, right? I mean, there's a hashtag called "I live where you vacation," and we really do live that. And I don't want to underplay it, but I also have many friends that work in New York City or other big cities, and they think that I just spend all day laying on the beach. That's not really the case either. So I think you can live in a beautiful place that has all these amazing resources like the DR, and the DR is very unique in the Caribbean. It has high mountains, it has coastal, beautiful beaches, it has wetlands and pine forests. It has a very amazing diversity. But the DR is a really special place, but it's hard work trying to protect it it's hard work trying to solve some of these major challenges that you kind of reference. When you have huge numbers of visitors to a place, it's often their mindset that they are just coming on vacation. It's not really their job to figure out how do you have these beautiful beaches and have these people that are maybe have less resources than when they're coming from. That's not your job to figure it out. So you want the resort or the hotel or the destination to work on that. And so that's what I've really tried to commit a lot of my efforts to is how do you make sustainability in the tourism industry as turnkey as possible, as simple for the visitor as possible? That so much of what we're doing is happening behind the scenes, but when you come on vacation here that somebody is thinking about what happens to the garbage. What are we doing to protect the coral reefs and the species that live on the coral reefs? How do we treat the local people, including our employees, but also people that live in and around the resort? How do we manage our water resources? What are we doing to combat climate change? So all these things have to happen organically within a company or within the hotel or the destination, and so that the guests can come and not feel guilty about what they're doing. So the guests can feel like, I'm putting my money down to go on vacation in this site, and it's really contributing to the betterment of that place. I'm helping regenerate that place as opposed to just making it an extractive experience.
It's pretty cool. I know, here in the States where I am, I'm actually in Florida while I'm chatting with you. There are a lot of people in the States that tell the stories of Disney World, and they've heard the mythical stories of the underground tunnels that help the characters get from point A to point B to pop up to create this magical experience. And they're intrigued by all of the magic that is Disney World. In a way, I kind of feel like that's your job as well, that you are there helping create the environment that so many others are going to come to experience in the DR, that so they don't have to necessarily worry about it. They can just show up and beautiful coral reefs are there. The rainforest is still growing and thriving. The beach is still immaculate, and they don't necessarily have to worry about it. Is that a fair connection, or is there more to it than, and I'm just really drastically oversimplifying?
No, I think a lot of it is that, much of what we do, we want it to be customer facing. So you want the guests to have the opportunity to participate in your sustainability program. So that could be visiting your coral restoration efforts by snorkeling on the reef and seeing researchers protecting the reef, or learning to do a dive certification and getting certified to actually do reef restoration work with hands-on planting of corals. And we want to have our waste program very visual so that the guest is participating in that. They're separating their waste or they're reducing the amount of waste they produce. They're making decisions in their consumption at the place that have less impact. But that's only a small piece of it, really. I mean, so much of this has to happen over a long period. It has to happen because the resort or the company is committed to it. It takes a lot of effort to get things changed, especially when companies are big and already operating. And to get a mindset change, this takes like day in, day out grinding. And so I think so much of the behind the scenes work is happening both in making decisions that improve things, but also a lot of it is the psychology of convincing your colleagues in the company that this makes sense, right? It's not just so simple of an equation that, okay, we're going to save this much money, and then it's going to produce this much benefit, and it's a go or a no go on this environmental program. Like there's a lot more psychology behind it. There's different ways that we quantify the benefits for the company, whether it's just in your image, it's a beautiful PR program, or really is there some efficiency that we're gaining because we're saving energy or saving water or reducing our purchasing costs, or is there some innovation we're creating where our company is getting ahead of the competition because we've done our business in some new way that nobody else was doing it. Sustainability pushes you in the direction of all three of those, and you kind of pull out where the benefit comes from. But it's not so much of a cut and dry math equation or an economic equation where it's just, I invested this much, I got this much back, I went ahead and did it again. Sometimes it works like that, but oftentimes there are more intangible benefits that you get out of really pushing a sustainability agenda.
So if I'm a CEO of a company, right, I am judged by my shareholders and the bottom line and the economics, supply and demand, whether or not I'm making profit, is my profit margin increasing? And I'm listening to this and I hear you telling me about sustainability, and I'm thinking, like you just described, I'm thinking about, okay, this could help save money, this could help generate income, but it might not. So is the psychological trick, the psychological, I don't want to call it manipulation, is it person sensitive? Do you have to have different conversations with each person, or is there this overarching theme that everybody just needs to recognize so they can all have this altruistic vision of how this truly just helps Mother Nature?
My strategy and what I've learned works over the years is really tailor fitting your message to usually the position that's hearing it. If you're talking to the chief financial officer, you don't want to bring the touchy feely, guest experience argument. You want to give really financial numbers. So we're going to invest this, we're going to get this back in this amount of time, and this is the savings. And that's usually more of a concrete argument because they're better at math than I am, and they're much better at breaking down these models. So I have to kind of bring them all the inputs and show them the value, and have that conversation. What I also found works really well is that the PR people get the value of sustainability and implementing green programs right away. And I'm not advocating greenwashing. Really, you want to bring legitimate programs because authenticity is your calling card in sustainability. So I'm not advocating, faking it and just making a PR effort, but the PR department is really the first area that I worked with. And in tourism, it's even more important, right? Because people are coming to the place. A lot of our sales and a lot of our bookings happen through word of mouth. People hear about our resort, they come and visit here, they tell their family, they tell their friends, and sometimes even bring everybody back together. And so they love our destination. So that is directly tied to your image and the feeling people get when they come to your place. But I even go deep into the argument with our human resources department. Look at the amount of money that we spend on training staff, on getting them integrated into our culture, getting them to understand how our business operates. And then if those people leave, that's a waste of your input and all of the resources you put into that. But there is studies that have demonstrated that people are willing to stay with a company if they value what that company stands for, if they believe in the mission of that company. And you see it more and more now. Millennials, I think, are more sensitive and more tuned into this. But when you have someone that comes in here and they feel like they're working for a greater cause, they're working to help improve the Dominican Republic as a country. They're helping create new jobs. They're help creating an unforgettable experience for visitors. They're helping improve the environment, conditions for the local community. People buy into that, and then we have so much less turnover. Like we did recently a meeting of our executive team, and among our 80 executive team, we had almost 1,000 years of experience on that team of people who had spent time in our company. The average time here for someone in my group is like 10 years at least that they've worked in the company, and that filters down through different parts of the company. So I think employee retention is a real consideration, and being competitive in the market for retaining talent, and its sustainability is a great argument for that. And then there's other ways to quantify it, but to answer your question, I think you can have the big picture message that you tell the public, but when you're trying to pitch this internally in the company, you got to convince people. And at the end of the day, people have their interests, their passions, and and the things they care about.
So when you talk about your company, um, Is your company primarily servicing Dominican employees? Or is it international? Who is working with you?
So Grupo Punta Cana is a company we've been around for about 52 years. It is Dominican owned. It's one of the only hotel groups in the Dominican Republic. Most of them are foreign investments. It's one of the only Dominican owned resorts, like large scale. We have close to 2,000 employees, depending, before or after COVID, but generally speaking, we're right around 2,000 employees. Um, and about 90 over 90% are Dominicans. So there's a very small group of Americans, a very small group of other countries represented, but almost everyone, especially in the executive committee, is Dominican. um, and then on the other side of that is 90% of our clients are not Dominican. So it's visitors from Europe, from Canada, from the United States, from South America, from other islands in the Caribbean.
And that's exactly where I was going to go with that, because it typically, regardless of the business, there's internal messaging and there's external messaging. The way that you communicate with those within your closed system is different than those that you're serving and servicing. But it's got to be a much different message as well when you're dealing, especially with sustainability and building the symbiotic relationship with the local community, recognizing that your clientele, if you will, are not necessarily as invested as internally. Is it an easier sell to get people internally, the people that have to walk the streets and drive the streets of the DR every day, to understand the mission and the vision of this, and that the altruistic side of things, simply because it's home for them?
I think that is, and this is something I talk a lot about in the book that I just published, Waking the Sleeping Giant. One of the messages I had and one of my discoveries is there is real value in staying in one place and really just working on solutions in a one place setting. Whether that place is a country or a region or a city or one company. But I think there's that consistency is really important. And that's one of the big successes we've had. So the trend in travelers right now, the sensibility, sustainability is very high. Post pandemic, everybody's thinking about their impact on the earth and, what they're consuming. And we're all very aware of this issue of the plastic crisis and all these other issues that you're kind of getting bombarded with in the United States. So when you come on vacation, you're a little more sensitive to that now. And there's lots of research that post pandemic, people are going to be really prioritizing sustainability. Well, I've been here 16 years, so I've been here long enough to know that that comes and goes, right? And oftentimes people say how committed they are to it until it's either really inconvenient or really expensive. So, people always ask me, is sustainability a high priority for travelers? And I say probably in the top 10. But the destination's really important, safety is really important, airlift's really important, price really important. And now with COVID, do they make you quarantine when you get there? There's now these new considerations. I usually put sustainability, if we're lucky, in the top 10. Right now, it might be in the higher part of the top 10, but um, it kind of comes and goes. So I think it's really important to have a consistency of your message locally. And that's one of the things that I think in Grupo Punta Cana we've been pretty successful with, is having continuity of the messaging. Throughout the history of this company, there's been a real commitment to the local community, to protecting the environment, and it's a messaging that's projected outward in the Dominican Republic over many years. So now, as more and more companies get active in sustainability and get active in renewable energy or in the UN Sustainable Development Goals or in all these different ways of expressing their commitment to sustainability, we're well well organized and kind of well recognized for our role because we've been at it for a long time and been consistently talking about this. So I think that consistency is very important, kind of your internal messaging and your messaging in the local ecosystem now, right, in the Dominican Republic. And externally, we want to really take advantage of this huge wave of interest in sustainable travel. And we really want to push this within our company and say, we got to do it. We got to do it. Everybody's looking for this. But in my heart of hearts, I know that this will come and go. I mean, people there, and I hope I'm wrong, I really do, but I do know that generally speaking, people kind of have this, sensitivity to these issues, and then something else comes up. We're busy people, we're getting new information all the time, and soon they're going to be thinking about something else. So I think we really got to kind of take advantage of this special moment of making sustainability a high priority for travel and in particularly in companies.
So you mentioned that you just said a book that was published, and you've got a documentary out. Like, you're doing a lot of things, which is, it's interesting to me that you're not just keeping your information close knit to your company. It is a company, right? It is a company where you want to be a differentiator. You want to talk about the fact that you do things differently. You provide different value than the competition. And one of the things that you do really, really well is this focus on sustainability, and a focus on, again, that symbiotic relationship between nature, the environment, the people that are there. But yet you're basically giving away the secret sauce to anybody that will take the time to read it, watch it, and learn about it. Why? It seems counterintuitive to the way that business is done.
Well, so much of this is tied into our history in Grupo Punta Cana. So the company was a pioneer in the tourism industry in the Dominican Republic when we built our first little cabañas in the 1970s. The Dominican Republic had 1,500 hotel rooms for the entire island. Like, more people went to Haiti at that point than went to Dominican Republic, which is now obviously flipped, and the Dominican Republic is now one of the most sought after destinations in the Caribbean. And the way that we became pioneers of launching tourism was not just by these little hotel cabañas. We got approval to build and operate a private international airport in 1984. It was built and constructed and began operations. It was the first privately owned international airport in the world. And because of the airlift, all of these beautiful white sand beaches around our region became very attractive for investment by established hotels, by the Meliat and Barceló and Iberostar, and these, Spanish, primarily Spanish all-inclusive chains. And so as those hotels became established, our airport grew. To fast forward today, now our region has close to 50,000 hotel rooms. Our airport, prior to the pandemic, was the #1 airport in the Caribbean in terms of passengers, getting close to 4 million arriving passengers a year. So it's a huge amount of traffic, and it was privately run. So it's our most important business as our resort. But ironically, our success in the airport is dependent on the success of the whole destination, because we need all of those hotel rooms full and operating in order for us to benefit and have more passengers coming through. So that changes the math a little bit on what makes you successful as a company. We have to have Punta Cana be a successful destination, not Grupo Punta Cana to be a tiny, little slice of Punta Cana that's incredibly successful. We want that too, but it's much more important for us to have tourism to be long-term and stable and profitable in the Dominican Republic. And that leads you straight to sustainability, because if you don't have clean drinking water, there's no way you're going to sustain 50,000 hotel rooms. If you don't have a good way to manage your waste, there's no way you're going to attract all of these tourists to come visit your destination. You need to treat the local community right, and you need to have education opportunities and health opportunities so that this community can serve the clients and the visitors that are coming to the destination. So we have this regional perspective and this stewardship idea for tourism that leads us right to the idea of sharing what we've learned, because it's only better for us if all the other hotels adopt this philosophy of sustainability. Punta Cana becomes sustainable regionally, and then we become more competitive than other destinations. Our company, Grupo Punta Cana, is not competing against any of these other hotels down the road from us. We're competing against Bahamas, against Maldives, against Cancun, against Jamaica, any number of destinations that are similar to us or have a similar amount of arriving tourists. So that's our competition. So we think very much of, like, as a Dominican Republic as a country brand, as opposed to just our little company. And so that's why we've made sharing such an important principle. So when we learned all kinds of ways to improve our waste management, we tried to tell as many people as we could locally so they would do it. So they would improve what they were doing. So we come up with a better system together. The same with water, the same with building codes. The same with the way that we've worked with the local community and helped build and run hospitals and schools. So all of these things are thinking towards making our region a more sustainable product and more competitive.
I love that mindset. It's if you're an author, you want everybody reading books because that means that your book has more likelihood to sell. If you're a filmmaker, you want people watching your types of films because it gives you greater opportunity to share your message. It's an intriguing mindset when you're talking about truly your immediate surroundings though as well. But the fact that you have a larger picture than just one resort, saying that that is our mechanism to drive success or to get a return on our investment. So I'm curious because you are still part of a company, a business that is in part airport, in part tourism, in parts resort. How do you determine success? Is your success really measured by the resort down the street? Is it measured by arrivals? Is it measured some environment by some environmental quotient? How do you determine whether or not you guys are hitting the mark of all that you're wanting to do?
Well, the founder of Patagonia, Van Chenard, who's kind of like a hero of mine, said, it's great to be, to have these crazy ideas, but it really only works if you're successful, right? And I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, you've got to take care of yourself first. You've got to make the business successful. You've got to make these projects and the sustainability mission really work in your own company, or else nobody's going to follow you. And the big myth about CEOs is that they're all these alphas and they're all leading and they're all making the big decision and the big move. But many CEOs are followers, and they just look over at their neighbor and they say he's doing that and it's working for him. Let's take a look at it ourselves. And that's the reality of a lot of companies. They innovate to a certain point, but much of it's following. And so if we're able to demonstrate that this model is great for us, that sustainability really contributes in any of these ways we've talked about, your image, your efficiency, innovation, staff retention, then that makes other companies and other CEOs look at what you're doing and it opens their eyes. And it's taken some time, but we're starting to see that in our region. And one of the hotel chains that operates in Dominican Republic, Iberostar, they now have, and they have hotels all over the world. It's, maybe a group a lot of people haven't heard of, but, a major footprint in the hotel industry. Um, they now have something called the Wave of Change, and they're doing all kinds of programs with coral reef restoration, with eliminating single-use plastics and other disposable products in their supply chain, sustainable seafood. Um, Coral restoration is something we've been working on in Grupo Punta Cana for 16 years. And these guys come along 2 years ago and they start doing it, and you would think the reaction would be, what the hell are they doing? When they come talk to us, we're kind of the pros in this. And it's totally the opposite. We said, finally, like, thank God, like, what else, what can we do together? What can we learn from what you guys are learning? What can do together to convince other hotels to do this? Because at the end of the day, if you just have one little slice of a region that's sustainable and everybody else is not, it's going to impact you eventually, your little slice. So we really need to start thinking strategically on a bigger scale. And if we can get big companies to join in what we're doing, all the better. So I think that's really kind of the mindset, and that's something we've learned. And we've tried to do as well as we can within our boundaries, within our resort, and show examples and share what worked and what didn't work. And then hopefully other people imitate it, replicate, improve on what we've done, and become better. And that's, I think, the end goal.
So how do people that aren't currently in the DR right now, how do they support this kind of vision and mission, whether it's for you, your company, the people that you're working with, or more globally? What are some tactical next steps for somebody like me?
Well, I think one thing that people are surprised to learn is how much power you have as a consumer, or in this case, as a traveler. And companies are more acutely aware of the opinions and thoughts and impressions of their clients than ever, because there's more ways to reach them, right? If you're in the travel industry, and you own and operate a hotel, there is a 100% chance you have somebody who's reading your TripAdvisor reviews every day and responding, both good and bad. Now think about that for a second. I'm Joe Nobody in Michigan who's going to go visit a restaurant owned by Grupo Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic, and I go there, and what I write on that TripAdvisor page is very powerful and something that gets the attention of that hotel. So when you ask the hard questions of companies and you continually bring it up and you critique it when it's not there and you really kind of continually put pressure on companies to improve, you'd be shocked how effective that is, even if it's one person. But I think about it, in our hotels, we have 200 hotel rooms. So if they're, occupancy, say at 70%, that's a lot of people coming in and out of our hotel. So if everybody has an opinion, good or bad, it really starts to get the attention of the hotel. So if every single person that comes to our hotel says, "I can't believe you guys still use plastic bottles," or, "Hey, I saw a lot of plastic garbage on the beach," or, "I was out snorkeling on the reef, I didn't see any fish." Like, the hotel manager is getting the information, directly. He doesn't have to talk to the guest because the guest is giving him feedback, through the review pages. And I think that's happening in so many other ways, not just in TripAdvisor, not to give them, an inordinate amount of power in our lives, but there's so many ways that we're interacting, whether it's through Instagram or social media, or many people are now, journalists in their own way. You're a journalist as a podcaster, people that have blogs, people that are very influential in different social media. Um, they come and visit us and it gets our attention. When somebody famous that we have never heard of, that's a YouTuber, shows up at our ecological reserve and posts a video and all of a sudden it has 4 million views, that gets your attention one way or another. So I think the consumer has more power than ever and can really drive the agenda of companies by just continually bringing up these issues. Where's your garbage go? What do you do in the water? How do you treat the local people? I saw this, I saw that, and really challenge them to respond to that.
It's super empowering. It really helps people, regardless of where they are, feel like they can help make some of these powerful changes that truly do matter. Where you are right now in the sustainability movement, do you have a big project or something that you have your eyes set on right now, that the next thing that needs to happen? And that next thing might be something. You're kind of like this walking PR, PR firm. You're constantly doing things and broadcasting the message. It might be something in that lane, or it might be actually something on the beach or on the resort that you are really working on right now. But what is your focus?
So I think there are two big issues from an environmental standpoint in the Dominican Republic in general. But the Dominican Republic has a very tourism-driven economy. Tourism is a key component of what we're doing. And there's two big issues for us right now. And obviously, they tie in certain ways to climate change, but Dominican Republic is not a net producer of greenhouse gases. So, we're more getting ready to adapt to climate change. What happens when we have worse storms and sea level rise? But we do have environmental issues that impact us on the day to day, and they're things that we're working on through the company Grupo Punta Cana and through our foundation, which is sort of the activism, sustainability think tank arm of the company. One of those issues is waste management. So how do we reduce the amount of waste that we produce through our purchasing process, through decisions we make as a company, in the way that we influence our guests or people that buy property and build homes here. So a lot of that is before we produce the waste, how do we reduce it, right? The total footprint of what we're having to manage. And then the things that we do have, and we don't always control that. For example, we have, this week, 300 flights arriving from around the world to our airport, and we manage all of that garbage. So what do we do with it all? We can't tell them what they can bring to us. We can only deal with what they do. So we have discovered and found ways to classify the waste and sell the recyclable material or give it away if it doesn't have a great market, but it's a better use than landfilling it. And right now we're working with a large scale project financed by the Inter-American Development Bank to look for solutions for organic waste. So hotels notoriously produce a lot of food waste, a lot of green waste in the landscaping and gardens. And we're working on a number of different solutions to transform that organic waste into something usable, whether it's compost or biogas. We've got another larger project looking at turning it into electricity. And then the other big thing we work on is this beautiful, uh, amazing habitat that attracts 99% of these visitors, which is our beaches. And those beaches are intimately linked to our coral reefs and to other coastal habitats. And so we've been working for many years protecting these reefs and also trying to restore them. So these are growing corals in underwater nurseries and then transplanting that coral tissue back onto the reef as we simultaneously try and solve many of the problems affecting the reef, whether it's overfishing or poor land management, et cetera. So to not get too complicated, but essentially the sea and waste are big problems that impact islands around the world, impact the developing country around the world, the developing countries around the world, and also tourism, and particularly in the Dominican Republic and in the Caribbean. So we're trying to attack those problems and share all those solutions as we go.
All right, Jake, I'm just going to be as direct as I can. I've got 4 kids here, and I want all of my kids to grow up and be like you. I mean, you're an environmentalist, you're a politician, you're savvy with social media, you are changing the world, you are saving the planet, you're helping lead a company, and you're living in the Caribbean. Like it sounds like you are Superman on the beach. How do I get my kids to do what you do?
Well, I think the most important thing for your kids is just to do something they're passionate about, whether it's filmmaking, podcasting, saving the planet, or making beautiful art. Whatever they're into, that's where they should go. And I think that's what's really kind of driven me in my career. I'm very passionate about the outdoors, about nature, about learning about these amazing species in the Dominican Republic and in all these different places around the world, and becoming just passionate about wanting to contribute in some small way to help protect them. And I think filmmaking for me, writing a book, anything I've been able to accomplish in those areas is basically just looking them at those different media as tools to help protect the environment. So, for to me, filmmaking, it was amazing. I love it. I still, working on different film projects, but really it was just about how can I use this visual tool to get this bigger goal of protecting the environment in people's, living rooms and get them thinking about it, get them worried about it, get them acting on it. And the same with writing a book. It was, I, spent 16 years, flopping and flailing and trying to find solutions to these environmental challenges. And we've learned a lot along the way, and things have really become much more mainstream now. And what lessons can we impart that we've learned from? So I think that's really was my main goal. And I think the hopefully it's helping in some way, and hopefully it'll inspire someone else to follow their passion and try and find some way to contribute to something more important for our world.
So let's just cut to it right now and do some shameless plugs if you don't mind for um, the resort, books, films, you name it, anything you want to plug, because there are people out there right now. They're going to be listening to this. Maybe it's vacation time for them. Maybe they're gearing up for the next big thing in their life, and they want to gravitate to the stuff that you're talking about right now. Plug away. Tell me what I need to be
All right.
reading, consuming, watching, going to, like, just name it all right now.
Well, I'm guessing most of your audience are intellectual folks, thoughtful folks. So hopefully they'll take the time to read my book, which is Waking the Sleeping Giant. Can be found on Amazon. And the book tells the larger story of Grupo Punta Cana, this 50-year history of the company, our journey in sustainability, and then really concrete lessons that other companies and other individuals can pull out of our learning and our experience, then apply to their own lives or their own company. So if you could start with Waking the Sleeping Giant on Amazon, I would be thrilled and super happy. Hopefully that'll then inspire you to go to puntacana.com and book a vacation at our resort. There's tons of different options for hotels, for home rentals. It's a very short flight to almost any city in the United States. From New York, it's a 3.5 hour flight. From Miami, I think it's an hour and a half, 2 hours. Direct flights from Houston. And as tourism takes off again, as we start to become, we get over the pandemic and people begin moving around the world again, Dominican Republic is safe, beautiful, lots of things to do, and just wonderful people. And I can say that in all honesty because I married a Dominican woman and I have two half Dominican kids. So I can vouch for the Dominicans. And And hopefully then if they're continue to be interested in other things that I'm working on, my social media is at Jake Kheel on Instagram, and I've got a website, jakekeel.com. And you can link up to the film we made a few years ago called Death by a Thousand Cuts, which is a film about the illegal trafficking of wood charcoal between Dominican Republic and Haiti. So it's a documentary film. And then a new project we're working on that we hope to launch later this summer. It's a YouTube series called The Island Naturalist. In Spanish, would be the Naturalista Isleño. So keep an eye out for that. But if you can only do one thing and one takeaway, just please pick up my book. I would really appreciate it. And I think that'll inspire you to either change some of your habits in your life or also just come visit us in Punta Cana and see it for yourself.
That's awesome. And for anybody that at the beginning of this, you were talking about those people that think that you just live life hanging out on the beach. I think you just clarified for all of them that that is not necessarily what you do all day every day. Granted, you might have a laptop with you or something on the beach while you're
That's right.
staring at the shore, but you're doing some epic things, man, changing the world and inspiring people to go out there and change their portion of the world as well. Uh, Jake, I am curious though. I ask this of just about every single guest I have on the podcast. As people are listening to all that you're up to and all that you're doing, they might be struggling trying to figure out how they take their first tactical step. They might be wondering what is the thing that they really need to be focusing on from this entire message. Imagine that you're standing on the stage in front of the world and you've just given this epic keynote address to everybody and you've got them fired up, but you're just about to walk off the stage and drop the mic and you want to leave them with a thought or something to get them moving in the right direction. What would be your mic drop moment from all of this?
What my hope is that sustainability disappears eventually. That becomes that treating the planet in a better way, that treating people in a better way, and that companies acting in uh, a more ethical way becomes the status quo. And we don't need sustainable travel or sustainable architecture or sustainable engineering or green anything, that becomes the status quo. That doesn't have to become the superlative that really, that's just the way we act. And I think what has been so fascinating to me about this journey of sustainability that I've been on is that it applies to every career and it applies to every area in every profession. It doesn't matter if you're a plumber, it doesn't matter if you're a builder, it doesn't matter if you're a carpenter, if you're a school teacher. There is always some way that your profession and your passion can bring some message or some change that does good things for the planet and good things for the local community. And I think that's my takeaway message is let's make sustainability the status quo and forget about it being an extra or an add-on. Let's have sustainability be the way we act normally. And I think that's the key thing is that we can do it and people are empowered to do it. And it just takes a little bit of understanding, it takes a little bit of effort. And even just that first action, whether that first action is, you know, buying some product because you find that it's more sustainable or participating in a beach cleanup in your community or helping do a recycling drive or composting or whatever it is, that first action just draws you in and really just sells you on the idea that, doing good and being good and protecting our planet is makes you feel good. And so there's no good reason not to do it.
Love it. And right now, just imagine the world is giving you a thunderous applause, and
Thanks
they
so
they are
much.
fired up. I love the idea of changing it from a superlative and making it the norm. Go out there and just make it a normal part of your routine, and inspire others to do the same by the actions that you're committing, just like you're doing on a commercial stage down there. One business mimics another business, one person mimics another person, and then change happens. That's awesome. Jake, I appreciate you taking time out of your beach going life, where I know you were probably going to go catch a wave or something today because you got nothing else going on. But
That's
I
right.
appreciate you taking time out of all of the things that you're doing just to hang out and talk to me and share your story with my audience. People that are listening right now, all of those resources that Jake mentioned will be linked down in the show notes. Go out, get a copy of his book, read it, be inspired to go out and make the necessary changes, and then go book that trip You might even run into him hanging out on the beach down there somewhere, cleaning a coral reef, changing the world somehow, some way. And while you're there, if for some reason it's a rainy day, pop in a film, watch it, be inspired to continue to be the change. So, Jake, you're awesome, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate all that you are doing. You truly lived up to everything I was hoping this would be. So I appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.